I'm trying to think of anything else that we could touch base on. Obviously, there's the new David Lynch rumors. Do you wanted to say anything about that for the good people of the podcast?
That's a good point. Yeah. I've been like really hoping that David Lynch isn't actually retired. There's a lot of haters weirdly in the David Lynch community. Like if you go on the David Lynch like subreddits and stuff that are, when anyone ever tries to talk about like a new David Lynch project, they're just like, he's retired. Like, stop fantasizing about it.
Twin Peaks.
I know. And it's annoying because I'm like, bro, he's not even that old. He's like in his mid 70s, younger than Ridley Scott by like 10 years, younger than Martin Scorsese by like almost 10 years.
He's not. It's Ridley Scott 88.
Wait, David Lynch is 78? I thought he was like 75. That's crazy.
No, he was born in 1946. So he's an old man, dude. And he has a smoking problem. Well, maybe he's quit smoking now, but
he has emphysema, yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I'm not saying he's a young guy, spring chicken, but yeah.
What is? It's 1980. He's a 40-year-old man. People say fast as fuck.
Ridley Scott is like 85, though. I'm not even kidding. Like, look up Ridley Scott's age. That dude, he might even be 86, which is genuinely crazy. I'm like, what the? Make that dude president.
Ridley Scott is 86, and that is crazy.
Yeah, he's about to direct another movie.
You were right. He's about 10 years older than fucking... That's insanity.
Yeah, so there's really no reason he needs to retire or that he should retire unless he truly wants to, of course. I know he just went through a fourth divorce, and obviously he has his emphysema from a lifetime of smoking. But this news broke the other day, which was fascinating but also tragic. David Lynch is still hoping to make animated movie SNOOTWORLD, which he scripted with Addams Family and Edward Scissorhands writer Carolyn Thompson. It's a story that children and adults can appreciate. So this is interesting. David Lynch has never done an animated film. He has done animation before. He did a short animated series called Dumb World in the 2000s and has dabbled in the medium before.
Getting sick 6 times.
Yep. Going back to the OG, he's always had an appreciation for animation. But this one sounds really interesting to me, specifically because it's seemingly, kid friendly. Like it's something that children and adults could appreciate, which you could not say about the vast majority of David Lynch projects, of course. But yeah, screen legend Lynch has said little publicly about SNOOTWORLD until now, and in recent months has quietly tried to breathe life into the project by seeking a financier. He began working on the script 2 decades ago with former Tim Burton collaborator Carolyn Thompson, writer of Nightmare Before Christmas and Edward Scissorhands. I don't know when I started thinking about snoots, but I do these drawings of snoots, and then a story started to emerge. Lynch told us in a rare interview. I got together with Carolyn and we worked on a script. Just recently, I thought someone might be interested in getting behind this, so I presented it to Netflix in the last few months, but they rejected it. And he says the reason for that decision was that SNOOTWORLD is kind of an old-fashioned story, and animation today is more about surface jokes. Old-fashioned fairy tales are considered groaners. Apparently people don't want to see them. It's a different world now, and it's easier to say no than yes. And take a look at the premise for this. Thompson described the storyline as wackadoo. It takes my breath away how wacky it is. The snoots are these tiny creatures who have a ritual transition at age 8, at which time they get tinier and they're sent away for a year so they are protected. The world goes into chaos when the snoot hero of the story disappears into the carpet and his family can't find him, and he enters a crazy, magnificent world. So that sounds awesome to me. It sounds totally trippy, completely Lynchian, but I actually do kind of like the idea of it being kid friendly. There's not enough entertainment that's kid friendly that's also just like super fucking weird and kind of dark. And I think that goes right back to what he commented about fairy tales, like old-fashioned fairy tales. A lot of old-fashioned fairy tales, despite the fact that they are for kids, are really, really weird. They're dark and trippy and psychedelic. I feel like a lot of the children's entertainment these days is just so sanitized, and they just, treat kids like they can't handle any dark concepts or anything like that. So I hope this gets made at some point, in addition to his other projects, which he's failed to get financing for, like his rumored show Wisteria, which was supposedly also going to happen at Netflix, but then got the cord pulled on it. So I just think it's tragic that someone with David Lynch's stature, like one of the most legendary directors of all time, and someone who's quite successfully connected with younger generations. There's some directors who were big back in like the 80s and 90s, but they don't really have much of a following now. David Lynch is not one of those people. He has a ton of fans, including young people that really connect with his work. Obviously, Twin Peaks probably being the main example of that. But I think that, Netflix is idiotic for turning him down. I feel like if Netflix premiered a David Lynch animated movie or a David Lynch anything, that it would be a big hit for the site and that people would really get into it. Do you think that's crazy?
Gavin, unfortunately, yes. I think that this is a recipe to lose a fuckload of money for them, and so 100%, dude. No, like you are the absolute 1% of the 1% David Lynch fandom. Most people, I can tell you, even myself, like I like David Lynch a lot. I'm not sure I would watch it. I'm not sure I would tune in. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. And I am like of the generation of people that he has connected with, and I do appreciate his work. But I'm like listening to that, watching that. I'm like, it's made for kids. I'll be like, great. I'm happy that he put that out. But it's kind of like when Guillermo del Toro does shit like this. I'm like, I still haven't watched any of the fucking Guillermo del Toro things that he put out. I haven't watched any of the Wes Anderson short stories. So I'm just not sure that when directors have an idea away from what they have become really known for, like if David Lynch wanted to put out a movie that was like a crime thriller that had a bunch of like interloping narratives and was something that they could see themselves getting their money back on, I think they would finance it. But I think after how much Twin Peaks: The Return cost, after all the chaos that he caused with Showtime, after wanting it to be exactly his fucking way, and then they're saying this doesn't even have nearly the draw of Twin Peaks because it's not an IP already. I just think I could see a bunch of reasons from the other side of the desk that they're like, hey, David, we love you, and if you want to do something like what would Jack do, where it costs us like $20,000 and we could put a David Lynch thing on our channel again, yeah, we'll do that. But a full series of animation, which is really expensive, and a bunch of ideas, and the way David wants to do it, I don't think it ever gets made.
I definitely understand where you're coming from, but my pushback to that would be that animation isn't that expensive. Like animation is, I feel like, the easiest possible way for Netflix to approve a David Lynch project, just because it's not as difficult to pull off. You only have to hire a team of animators to make it happen. I'm sure it would still be costly, but I just feel like they wouldn't lose that much money on it, no more than they lose routinely when they bankroll all sorts of random shitty ass movies and shows for their service. It just seems like a weird choice because like animation is actually pretty big right now, not just with kids, but with adults too. There's a lot of huge animated shows that are geared towards adults, like that show Invincible that's really popular on Netflix. Obviously, Netflix had BoJack Horseman, which was one of their biggest shows. Rick and Morty had its huge moment. Animation is
but those are all comedies.
I think this would be a comedy.
Not one of those kinds of comedies.
Fair enough, but I still think that they had that what was that show? With the guy who always goes on Joe Rogan, the Midnight Special. Do you remember watching that?
Oh, I did watch that. And that was one season and it didn't get picked up because it lost a bunch of money. And I liked it.
You don't think it made them any money?
Oh, I was pretty sure that it didn't. And that's why Duncan Trussell didn't get his the rest of his Netflix stuff out.
Interesting. I just thought that it was supposed to be a one season thing. It seemed like it concluded on a pretty, final note.
I thought that it was like a tee up for him to do a special for them, but that could have been wrong.
And maybe I'm not sure about all that. It just seems like there is a market for animation, and with this specifically, it could appeal to adults and children. I don't know. And the writer of it literally wrote freaking Nightmare Before Christmas, one of the most famous and popular animated movies of all time. Plus Edward Scissorhands. Like it seems like at least could attract some attention. And with the amount of attention that David Lynch gets online, I think it could trend. I think people would talk about it. It seems like something that Netflix could, pay David Lynch to create if they're going to, pay Zack Snyder enough money to make Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2, which no one really gave a shit about. But I definitely understand your pushback. Like, I'm not saying it would be a slam dunk, easy win financially, but LOL, David Lynch directs an episode of Bob's Burgers, which dives into the backstory of the health inspector voiced by Sam Seder. Yeah, that would be your ultimate fantasy, Autumn Leaves. A whole episode just about the health inspector. What's his name? I love that character in Bob's Burgers.
Oh God. No, it's not Teddy. Teddy's the other guy. I don't know, actually. The health inspector, Sam Seder.
Health inspector. What is it? Oh, yeah, Hugo. Hugo, of course. Of course.
I know a dog named Hugo.
Anyway, yeah, let's hope David Lynch gets that financing, and let's hope he makes at least one more project before he actually does retire. That's my hope, at least. But yeah,
I hope he gets a project too. If he's only going to do one more before he retires, and your gun to my head, I'd be like, nah, David, let's shake the shuffleboard a little bit one more time and put out something that's not an animated children's show. I'd like to see you do a crime thriller again, but I'm being selfish.
I feel like he does have other projects that he would prioritize ahead of this one, but he can't get financing for them either, because he did pitch this whole show that was supposedly going to be called either Wisteria or Unrecorded Night, that some people were theorizing was connected to Twin Peaks. That was going to be a go with Netflix for like 8 or 10 episodes or something, but then it's unclear if they pulled the plug on it or if COVID took it off their schedule. I don't really know what all happened. But yeah, he's had other projects that aren't animated that he's also failed to get financing for, which again is just such a crazy thing that directors like David Lynch, John Waters, another one who has another project that can't get enough money to be made yet. Hopefully it does. He just said that it doesn't have enough money. But yeah, Aubrey Plaza is attached to that one. I'd love to see John Waters make another movie, and I think he will eventually get financing for it. But it's just crazy that these titans can't get their money. Francis Ford Coppola obviously had to sell his wine company to make Megalopolis. So yeah, it's tough out there.
Francis Ford Coppola also famously cost production companies a shitload of money throughout his career, hundreds of millions of dollars, and he would be importing fucking luxury. Like Francis is a great, but there's a reason why he's not making movies like Scorsese was his whole career. There's a reason why he didn't get work like Ridley Scott got his whole career, was because he made a bunch of busts and he got them to invest shit tons of money in movies that didn't go anywhere, and his Zoetrope production company turned out to be a huge disaster, even though it made a fuckload of money off of the first couple of movies. It was anyway. Francis Ford Coppola is a mixed bag, but I agree. And it's like John Waters. It's not like John Waters always had massive budget, but he's made Hairspray, he made Crybaby, he made Pink Flamingos for the late night crowd. A legend for sure.
It just seems crazy that like some company like A24 or like someone wouldn't just be like, yeah, of course, like
just
of course we're gonna give like they gave Ari Aster like almost like $50 million to make Beau is Afraid, which was a huge flop. I'm like, you can't give that kind of money to fucking John Waters or David Lynch. Like, come on, make it happen. Think about what a huge clout boost that would be for any company to like premiere the next David Lynch film. I just can't believe that there's not more, willingness on the part of financiers to take a chance, given the fact that, like I said, he does connect with the younger generations. People love him. He trends on social media all the time. People still talk about Twin Peaks all the time. Seems pretty obvious to me, especially with, Apple giving like just unlimited money to people like Scorsese.
But I think the other thing that we have to counter is that even when you do give money to people like Scorsese, when you do give them to those big household names, they haven't been making their money back. They haven't been making a huge amount. It hasn't been seen a financial return. So I think their calculation is, okay, if I can't even get my money back with a guy like Martin Scorsese, or a household name for people who are under 29 with a guy like Ari Aster, then why would I give it to a guy like David Lynch, who's even more niche? Why would I give it to a guy like John Waters, who's even more niche? Like, we might revere them more because we're film bros and we know what they're capable of, but the general population is not going to be able to understand and distinguish the difference. You know what I mean? Like, they're just going to be like, this is an old director. I've heard his name before. What did he make that movie Blue Velvet? Oh, and he did Twin Peaks. That's cool. He did an animated show for kids. I don't know if I'll check that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think that's the way that they're thinking about it. And obviously there should just be money for people who are at that point in their career. And that's why a lot of these directors, they rely on funding from like the French government or like the Greek government, not the Greek government. They don't have money to give out, but you know what I'm talking about? Like money from for the arts in Europe, basically. And that's how, for example, a guy like Woody Allen will always have funding for his films, or, Roman Polanski wants to make a movie in, Scotland, where, he knows he can get safe passage back home. Then they'll finance that for him. And I think if Lynch wanted to go off and do something like that, he could, but I don't think he wants to travel. I just think that he's at the point in his life where he's content to either make it or not. And he offers good ideas to people. And if they don't take it, he doesn't seem like he's going to break his back to force them to.
No, that's definitely the case. That's definitely the case. And as for like Apple losing money on the Scorsese movies and stuff like that, I've actually heard that that was intentionally their strategy. They knew they would take a huge loss on Killers of the Flower Moon, for example. They just like basically funded it for the clout of having an Apple original Martin Scorsese movie. They got 10 Oscar nominations because they want to be taken seriously as a film company.
Kind of like what Netflix did.
Yeah, exactly. But it seems like David Lynch might have like just missed the boat, where they were just giving blank checks to big directors, and now he's like, "Come on, where's my blank check? I have some ideas."
And
they're
him
like,
and
"Sorry,
David
bro."
Fincher should have been on the phone in 2010, when it was just a license to print money and be like, dude, you want to bring back Twin Peaks now? I mean, fucking go for it, bro. But as it was, Showtime got the rights to it, and the rest is history. I think if Netflix would have gotten the rights to Twin Peaks: The Return, we could have seen more content with them together. But Showtime was like such a horrible experience for him that I think he was like not going to work with them again.